The fear room the chamber was silent, not the peaceful kind of silence. This was heavy, sharp, like a knife pressed against the skin. Rows of alien ambassadors sat in a perfect half-circle, each on a raised seat of black stone. Their eyes glowed, faintly in the dim light, but none of them dared to blink too much. A single wrong move could bring punishment. Dot at the center of it all stood. Her Dot the Warden. Dot tall, thin, dressed in robes of deep crimson that shimmered with strange patterns, as if the cloth itself was alive. Her skin was the pale gray of old bones, and her eyes cold and golden cut through the air like blades. She didn't speak yet. She didn't have to. Her mere presence was enough. Everyone feared the Warden. She had ruled the chamber for decades, making decisions that shaped the fate of entire star systems. One gesture from her could mean the destruction of a world. One raised eyebrow could mean exile. Nobody questioned her. Not ever. The floor beneath her throne was a polished mirror of black glass. She paced slowly across it, her long robes whispering over the surface. The sound was the only thing in the vast hall. Finally, she spoke, her voice deep and smooth, yet carrying the weight of command. "Bring in the human." A side door slid open with a hiss. 2 tall guards entered, each wearing armor that looked like molten metal frozen in place. Between them walked a human man, his hands chained in front of him. He didn't look down. He didn't stumble. He walked as if the chains were nothing more than decoration. The ambassadors leaned forward slightly, their glowing eyes following him. Humans were rare in this chamber. They were unpredictable. But none had ever stood here as a prisoner before the Warden. The guard stopped in the center of the floor and shoved him forward. The chains clinked against each other. The Warden stepped closer, her golden eyes fixed on him. "Do you know where you are?" The human didn't answer. "Do you understand?" she continued. "That this is the highest court in the Concord? That your words here decide your fate?" He raised his head slowly, meeting her gaze. "I understand." Something flickered across her face, amusement. It was the kind of smile predators wore before striking. "You should be afraid," she sighed. The room seemed to shrink around her words. The air grew heavier. Dot, but the human only tilted his head slightly. "You don't scare me." It was so quiet afterward that the faint hum of the chamber's force fields sounded like thunder. Dot, an alien ambassador, gasped. Another shifted uncomfortably in their seat. No one spoke to the Warden like that. No one ever had. The Warden's smile faded. Her voice was softer now, but sharper. "Repeat that." "I said," he replied, his voice steady, "you don't scare me." She studied him for a long moment, her eyes scanning his face for a hint of fear. There was none. His breathing was calm, his stance steady. Dot, she began to walk around him slowly, each step echoing in the chamber. Her robes brushed the floor like whispers. "Humans," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Always so loud, so stubborn." He didn't answer. "Your kind," she went on, "thrives on hope. But here." She stopped in front of him again. "Here, hope dies quickly." "Not for me," he said. A murmur spread through the ambassadors. This was more than arrogance. This was defiance. The Warden tilted her head. "Do you think courage will save you?" "No," he said. "But it might save others." For the first time, her golden eyes narrowed, a faint crack in her perfect mask of control. The tension in the room thickened. Even the guards shifted slightly, uncertain. The Warden leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow filled the entire hall. "If you are not afraid of me, then you are a fool." He smiled faintly. "Or maybe I just see you for what you really are." "And what is that?" she asked, her tone like ice. "A ruler who's nothing without fear." That hit the room like a blade through glass. Every alien froze. Even the air seemed to pause. The warden's lips pressed into a thin line. She straightened, her voice regaining its strength. "We will see how long your courage lasts." She turned to the guards. "Test him." One guard tapped a control on their wrist, and a small floating sphere emerged from the wall, glowing faintly blue. It hovered near the human's face, emitting a soft hum. "This device," the warden said, "reads the truth in your emotions. If you feel fear, it will glow red." The sphere's light stayed blue dot. She waited. Nothing changed. Dot, blue dot. The warden's eyes darkened. "Interesting." The human shrugged. "Maybe your power only works on those who give it to you." The warden's voice sharpened. "Remove him." A guard stepped forward, but not before the human spoke one last time loud enough for the entire chamber to hear. "You don't scare me, and soon they won't fear you either." The chamber erupted in whispers as the guards dragged him away. The warden stood still, her golden eyes following him until the door closed. For the first time in years, the room didn't feel like hers anymore. Asterisk the weight of silence. The door sealed behind the human with a deep metallic thud. Silence fell again, but it wasn't the same as before. Before, the silence belonged to the warden. Now it was unsettled, shifting, like the ground before an earthquake. The ambassadors didn't look at her, not directly. Their glowing eyes darted to the floor, to each other, anywhere but to the throne. A few of them whispered tiny, fast words and languages. The human couldn't have understood, but the warden understood them all. She did not like what she heard. The human's words still rang in her head. A ruler who's nothing without fear. It was absurd, impossible, and yet she turned sharply toward the council seats. The motion alone was enough to kill the whispers. "You will forget what you just heard," she said, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. "The human is nothing, a mouth that speaks without thought." No one answered. Her golden eyes narrowed. "Speak." An ambassador with long silver tendrils for hair finally stood. His voice was soft, careful. "We have never seen one resist." "The sphere." The warden's jaw tightened. "He is not resisting," she snapped. "He is ignorant of what's coming." Another voice, older and deeper, spoke from the far left of the chamber. "Or perhaps he is telling the truth." The warden's head turned slowly toward the speaker, a scaled alien with bright yellow ridges along its skull. One of the oldest council members. "Explain yourself," she said. The elder's throat made a clicking sound before it spoke. "If fear is your weapon, and the weapon does not work, then the war is already lost." Gasps. A few seats shifted back. The warden's eyes burned gold. The elder did not sit down. The warden stepped off the black glass platform and walked toward him, her robes moving like living shadows. "You think a single human can undo what I have built?" The elder didn't answer. He didn't have to. The thought was already in the room, and she could feel it. It was like a crack in a perfect wall. Small now, but cracks grow. Far away, in the holding cells deep below the chamber. The human sat on the floor of his cell, his back against the cold wall. The chains were still on his wrists, but they didn't matter. He had seen the shift in the room. He had seen the flicker in her eyes. She wasn't invincible, not anymore. Asterisk back in the council chamber. The warden raised a hand. "Guards, prepare the Hall of Shadows." A ripple of unease went through the room. The Hall of Shadows was not spoken of openly. Most who entered it never came out. One ambassador dared to speak. "Warden, the hall is for war criminals." The human has not. Her gaze cut him off mid-sentence. "This is war," she said. Moments later, the human was pulled from his cell. The guards marched him through a series of cold metal corridors. The lights dimmed the deeper they went, until only a faint glow from the floor lit the way. The air grew colder, thinner. The guards said nothing, but the human caught the way one of them avoided looking at him, like they didn't want to see. What was about to happen? They stopped before a massive door, carved with alien symbols that seemed to move in the shadows. The door opened inside. The Hall of Shadows was a place of nightmares. The walls shimmered with moving shapes, faces, claws, teeth, things that shifted faster than the eye could track. The air vibrated with a low, constant hum, deep enough to rattle the bones. In the center of the hall, a tall black chair stood on a raised platform. Straps dangled from its arms and legs. The warden stood beside it. "This," she said softly, "will show me your fear." The human looked at the chair, then back at her. "You really want to know what scares me?" he asked. "Yes," she said. He smiled faintly. "It's not you." Asterisk the test. The warden's golden eyes never left the human's face. "Strap him in," she ordered. The guards moved quickly, forcing him into the tall black chair. Cold metal bit against his skin as the straps locked around his wrists, ankles, and chest. The human didn't resist. He just kept his eyes on her, as if daring her to try. A low hiss filled the Hall of Shadows as the floor panels shifted. From the darkness above, a strange machine descended, a sphere larger than a man's head, covered in thin, glowing lines. Its surface pulsed like a heartbeat. The glow shifted from blue to white. "This," the warden said, "is the true sphere. Unlike the simple reader you saw before, this one will dig into your mind. It will find the fear you hide, the fear you don't even know you have, and it will make you live it." The human's lips curled into a faint smile. "Sounds like fun." Her eyes narrowed. "We will see." Asterisk, the machine floated closer. It stopped just above his head, and the humming grew louder, a deep vibration that seemed to push into the skull. The walls of the hall came alive. Shadows stretched and twisted, forming images. A burning ship, a dying planet, a woman screaming for help. The air smelled of smoke and blood. The warden watched closely. "Ah, there it is, a memory." But the human only chuckled. Not fear, just regret. Her expression froze. The sphere shifted tactics. The shadows changed. Now the scene showed the human himself, alone, floating in the void of space. No sound, no air. Only cold and endless black. One of the guards glanced at the sphere. The light was supposed to turn red when fear peaked. But it stayed blue. The warden's voice grew sharp. "This is impossible." The sphere pulsed faster, searching, digging deeper. The walls showed hundreds of faces, his crew, his family, strangers he didn't know, all turning away. From him, abandoning him, leaving him with nothing. The human closed his eyes. "You think this is fear? You're wrong. This is what I fight for, so it never happens again." The light stayed blue. A faint stir came from the corner of the hall. The elder council member, the one who had spoken against the warden earlier, stood there, silent, watching. The warden noticed him, and her tone turned cold. "You should not be here." The elder ignored her. His eyes stayed on the human. "You can't break him. Don't you see? Every test you give him makes us doubt you more." The warden's voice cracked with sudden anger. "Leave." But the elder stepped forward. "Or what? You will make the whole council watch as you fail." The warden's golden eyes flared bright, too bright, and for a heartbeat, the human saw it. Fear, not in himself, but in her. The sphere gave a sudden high-pitched whine. Sparks burst from its surface. The straps around the human's wrists snapped open. The guards moved forward. Too slow. The human stood, the sphere hovering inches from his head, still glowing blue. He looked right at her. "Your biggest problem, Warden? You thought fear was the strongest weapon in the galaxy. And it isn't?" She said, forcing her voice to sound calm. No. He stepped closer. Hope is. Asterisk breaking the pattern, the Warden's golden. Eyes followed the human as he stepped off the platform. The guards hesitated. That hesitation was new. It was small, almost invisible. But she saw it, and so did he. You will return to the chair, she ordered. The human didn't stop walking. No. The word hung in the air like a THUNDERCLA. No one said no to the Warden. Not here. Not in the Hall of Shadows. The guards looked at each other. One took a step forward, then back again. Their armor clinked in the silence. The Warden's voice sharpened. Obey me. The human's eyes locked on hers. They're not afraid of you anymore. They're afraid of me. Because I'm not afraid of you. Something in the room shifted. Not in the walls, not in the floor, in the people. The guard's breathing changed. The elder in the corner stood straighter. The Warden knew this feeling. It was the same moment before a crowd turned violent. Or free dot, she tried a new move. A dangerous one. Fine, she said, her voice softer. Let us speak alone. The guards stepped back. The elder didn't move. I said alone. She snapped. The human glanced at the elder, then back to her. No. If you have something to say to me, you can say it in front of witnesses. A murmur passed through the room. The Warden's perfect. Control was cracking. Everyone could hear it. She began to walk in a slow circle around him. You think this is about fear? This is about survival. The Concord exists because I keep it in order. Without me, there is chaos. War. He turned to follow her with his eyes. You mean without fear? People might remember they have choices. Her pace quickened. Choices destroy unity. Or build it, he countered. They stopped, face to face. You can't save them all, she said. I don't have to. He replied, I just have to remind them they're not helpless. High above the hall, a balcony door slid open. A few ambassadors entered quietly, drawn by whispers of what was happening below. They leaned forward, curious. The Warden noticed them. She hated that they were watching. She hated even more that she couldn't just order them out, not without showing she was rattled. The human saw her glance upward and smiled. Looks like we have an audience. The Warden raised her voice, speaking not to him, but to the watchers above. This human thinks he can break the Concord. He thinks he can undo centuries of peace. Peace? The elder said from the corner. You mean control. The human stepped forward, so his voice carried to the balcony. She's right about one thing. I do want to break something. The chain she's wrapped around all of you. A ripple of energy passed through the watchers. Small, but growing. The Warden could feel it. And for the first time, she couldn't stop it with a word. Her last weapon was power. Raw, physical power. She dropped her voice low. If words won't work, pain will. Her hand shot forward, and a surge of golden energy erupted from her palm, slamming into the human's chest. He staggered, but didn't fall. Gasps filled the air. The Warden stepped closer, her hand still glowing. Kneel. The human's voice was tight but steady. No. Another blast. Harder. He stayed on his feet. Something broke. Not in him, but in the room. One of the guards dropped their weapon. Another stepped back toward the wall. The balcony murmurs grew louder. The Warden realized what had just happened. Pattern was broken. The fear was leaking out. And she couldn't put it back. Asterisk the battle of wills. The Hall of Shadows felt smaller now. Not because the walls had moved, but because the air was so charged, so heavy, it felt like the space itself was holding its breath. The Warden's golden eyes blazed, but there was something else in them now. Something she had never allowed anyone to see. The human saw it. And he pressed forward. You've been ruling with fear for so long, he said, voice steady. You've forgotten what real strength looks like. Her lips curled into a cold smile. Strength is doing whatever is necessary to win. No, he said, stepping closer. Strength is standing when everything tries to make you kneel. The warden's hand rose, golden light surging around her fingers. She launched it at him again, but this time he didn't just take it. Moved through it. The blast struck his chest, but instead of sending him backward, he leaned into it, like walking into a storm. The light bent around him, scattering into the air in shimmering fragments. Her eyes widened. Impossible. You're not fighting my body, he said. You're fighting my will. And that's not something you can break. She changed. Tactics. Fast. Her voice dropped, low and dangerous. Then I will take your mind. The gold in her eyes flared brighter, and a wave of psychic pressure hit him like 1,000 invisible hands, shoving into his thoughts. The room flickered. The hall of shadows dissolved into something else. He stood on a battlefield, smoke rising all around. Bodies, fire, the sound of screaming. He saw his crew, broken, bleeding, calling for help. Her voice was in his head. This is your failure. You couldn't save them. His hands shook, but not from fear. He forced himself forward. The battlefield trembled, cracks splitting the ground. His voice cut through the illusion. They died because of people like you. And I'm still here because they believed I could finish what we started. The battlefield shattered. They were back in the hall. The warden's breath was unsteady now. Sweat ran down her temple. The human took another step toward her. Every eye in the room was on them now. Guards, ambassadors, the elder. No one moved. No one dared interrupt. The warden spoke again, but her tone was different. Sharp, yes, but with something behind it. Desperation. Why? Why fight when you know you will lose? He stared at her, unwavering. Because the fight isn't just mine. Every second I stand, someone else finds the courage to stand too. As if on cue, one of the guards lowered their weapon. The warden's gaze darted toward the movement, and that split second of distraction was all he needed. He closed the distance, stopping only inches from her. I'm not here to defeat you, he said quietly. I'm here to prove you can be defeated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, from the balcony above, a voice rang out, an ambassador's voice. I believe him. Gasps. Another voice followed. So do I. The sound grew. Murmurs becoming voices. Voices becoming shouts. Warden turned to face them, but the human didn't move. He stood his ground, the symbol of something they hadn't felt in years. Hope, asterisk, the shift. The voices from the balcony rolled down into the hall like a wave. I believe him. So do I. Enough of the fear. The warden's golden eyes swept the crowd, sharp as blades, like for once. They didn't cut as deep. Something had changed. It wasn't just noise. It was movement. The ambassadors were leaning forward, standing, speaking without waiting for permission. The ripple of unrest was turning into a storm. The warden tried to speak, but the human moved first. Look at you, he said to the balcony. You've been quiet so long, you've forgotten the sound of your own voices. Now listen to them. More shouts. Louder now. The air was vibrating with energy, not from fear, but from something far more dangerous to her rule. Hope. That the elder stepped from the shadows, his voice steady. You see it, Warden. The Concord is not a chain. It is a choice. And they are choosing. The warden's jaw tightened. They are mine to command. Not anymore, the elder replied. Her robes flared as she spun back toward the human. You think this is a victory? These people have lived under my rule for decades. They will not survive without me. They'll survive because they'll finally have something worth surviving for. he said. A guard, one who had once held the human in chains, stepped forward, his weapon lowered. He's right. The warden turned on him like a predator, but the guard didn't flinch. Behind him, another followed, and another. The pattern was breaking faster now. From above, an ambassador shouted, "Remove her!" Chaos rippled through the hall. Some shouted, in agreement, others in fear. The warden's control was slipping from her fingers, and she knew it. The human stepped closer to her, his voice low so only she could hear. "This is what happens when people see you bleed." "I am not bleeding," she hissed. "Not yet," he said. The warden raised both hands, golden energy flooding the hall, blinding for an instant. The noise stopped. Fear, for a moment, tried to return. But this time, it didn't last. From the glow, the human's voice rang out, strong and unshaken. "Do you feel that? That's not her power. That's your fear leaving you." The light dimmed, and the crowd roared. The warden took a single step back. It was small, almost invisible, but everyone saw it. It was the first step she had taken. Away from power. The shift was complete. The human didn't need to win the fight. He already had. The fall of fear. The warden's golden eyes swept the hall one last time. She saw it, the cracks in her empire. The guards who no longer obeyed, the ambassadors who no longer bowed, the crowd that no longer feared. And she knew, if she walked away now, she would never return. Her voice dropped into a low growl. "You think this is over?" The human didn't move. "It is." She stepped forward, her robes snapping like banners in a storm. "Then I will end it my way." Her hands shot out, golden energy tearing through the hall. The floor cracked, sending shockwaves that knocked several ambassadors off their feet. The balcony above shuddered. The guards scattered, shouting orders that no one followed. In the chaos, the warden lunged for the human. Her movements were faster than before, almost a blur. She struck his chest with a blast meant to shatter bone. He staggered, but didn't fall. She struck again, and again. Still, he stood. The hall went silent, every eye locked on the two of them. Human's voice was low but steady. "You've ruled so long, you forgot what it means to be challenged. This is what it looks like when someone stands and doesn't break." He stepped forward, one pace at a time, forcing her backward with nothing but his presence. The crowd saw it. The fear was gone. The elder stepped into the open, his voice carrying, "Enough! Warden, you no longer have the right to rule." Dozens of voices joined him. "Enough! Enough!" The warden's gaze darted from the human to the crowd. For the first time, she looked trapped. The human raised his voice. "This is the moment. You can live in fear, or you can stand and take back your freedom." The hall erupted. Ambassadors slammed their hands to the railing in unison. Guards dropped their weapons entirely. The warden's power flared again, but it was weaker now, her glow dimming as the crowd's voices grew. She made one final move, a desperate one. She leapt toward the human, a dagger of pure energy forming in her hand. But before she could strike, a guard, one of her own, stepped between them. The blade struck his armor and shattered in a burst of light. The guard looked at her, voice steady. "We are done fearing you." The hall fell quiet again, but it wasn't the old silence. It was the silence before a verdict. The human stepped past the guard, right up to her. His eyes locked on hers. Fear dies today. He reached up and tore the golden emblem from her chest. The mark of her rule. Hit the floor with a sharp clang. The sound echoed through the hall like a bell announcing the end of an era. The warden didn't speak. She didn't fight. She simply turned and walked out. No one stopped her. No one bowed. The human stood in the center of the hall, Surrounded by a sea of eyes that no longer looked down, the elder's voice broke the quiet. The Concord will need a new way, one without fear. The human nodded. Then let's start building it. The crowd erupted, not with fear, not with obedience, but with something far rarer. Freedom.